Today we're going to be focusing on learning numerical formations and how they could be represented numerically. So let's take a look here. As you take notes on this video, we're going to separate these formations into 4 different ones, and we're going to really focus on one in particular because in Texas at least, we want to make sure that we really hit it hard on the place values and how much they're worth. Take for example, we're going to start with this number 8,765 and 23 hundredths. So we're going to start with that number here. And if I were to start placing these everywhere, I know that the 8 is in the thousands place. So it goes there. Now how I would say that is 8,000 because that comma is going to separate where we are going to be able to start moving on to the next period. For example, 7 is going to be in the hundredths place. Now we don't just say 700 and end it because there's more to it. There's also a 65. There's a 6 tens and a 5 ones. So far we would say we have 8,765 and now we have 23 hundredths. So the way that would be in word form is just as we said it. We have the 8,000, the 700, and then we have 65 joined together. As you guessed it, that and is the decimal. And then finally 23 hundredths. Now expanded form is something that is learned earlier grades like 3rd and 2nd. This is where we just have to break it down by place only. So we see that there's an 8 in the thousands, which means there's 1,000, another 1,000, another 1,000, another 1,000, and we keep going that amount of times. So that means that we have 8,000 separate from itself. Then we have 700 separate from itself. 6 tens, which is 60, and then finally 5 ones. But we also have decimals. So that would mean that we have 0 whole numbers and 2 tenths, 0 whole numbers, 0 tenths, and 3 hundredths. So the standard form would be all of that put together. For an expanded form, it's all separated. And it's separated by place only. And we're going to add all of those up to get the total. Now here's the one that we're really going to focus on the most, because expanded notation is very new, and for 3rd and 4th graders it's very difficult, so we're going to focus specifically on expanded notation. Expanded notation means it involves multiplication of those place values. So we take the place value and we multiply the amount that's in it, and then that gives us the amount. Take for example our number that we're starting off with, 8,765 and 23 hundredths. We know that the 8 is in the thousands place. So what you're asking yourself is, we have 1,000. How many times? We have it 8 times. The way this is worded is you have 8 of those thousands that it's occupying. Similarly with 7, we're going to add that, since expanded form means we are going to write it out every place expanded for its value, but we have to get the notated value of that amount. Take for example, we have 7 of those hundreds. Then we have 6 of those tens. And then we have 5 of those ones. We can continue and say that we have also 2, this is where it gets tricky, of those tenths. And finally, we have 3 of those hundredths. So that is expanded notation when put together. It is the value and how many is occupying it. You can use your multiplication strategies to help you with this. For example, we have 8 times 1,000, we know that is 8,000, which is starting to represent our expanded form, which comes back from our standard form. Then we're going to add the 7 times 100. 7 times 100 is 700, which is where we get that 700, which is where we get that in its place. We continue this on, but the real issue that I've noticed students struggle with are the decimal parts. We must always remember that the tenths place is represented as a 0 whole numbers, 0.1. And that means that that 1 is in the tenths place. It's holding that value because, as we know, anything times 1 is anything. So we take, for example, the 2 times 0.1, the 2 times 1/10. If I take 2 times 0, we know that that is still 0. If I do 2 times that 1, I know that that decimal doesn't change, and now it's a 2, which is exactly where it came from in our expanded form, which is where that came from in our standard form. The same thing happens with the hundredths. We have a 3 times the whole number 0, which is going to still stay as 0. But then, once we do that, there is nothing left except for the 1 at the end. So this is going to continue. 0.0 is still going to be 0. It all continues until we finally get to 0.01. That's where the 1 changes to occupy a 3. This is known as the distributive property. This is 3 times 0, 3 times 0.0, and 3 times 0.01. If you take 3 times 0, it still equals 0, so there's nothing there. If we take 3 times 0 and that 0, it's still 0. There's nothing there. But if we take 3 times 0, and times 1, we finally get that place value of that hundreds we've been looking for. Because 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 tenths is 0, and 3 times 100th is 3, which is our standard form, which we broke down into just 300ths. So the expanded form is just the expanded notation, but using multiplication. Let's do some practice problems. In which of these does the digit 2 have a value of 2 times 0 and 1/10? This would mean that we are focusing on the tenths. So therefore, whatever 2 times 0 is going to stay that way. Whatever 2 times 1 is, will occupy that space, which 2 times 1 is 1. So that's why we are going to correctly input this as 2/10. We notice in number 1 here, there is no option for 2/10. Instead, it has 200ths, so that's not our answer. We can now see that there's 41, but there is a 2/10, and that's the only part we care about, because it says in which of these is the digit 2 has a value of that, which means it's going to have a 2 somewhere. We just want to make sure that that 2 is where we want it to be, in the tenths place. Let's look here. The 2 is not in the tenths place. Instead, it is in the 1's place value. The 1 is in the tenths place, so that is incorrect. The 2 remains there. It's still in the 1's place. That's still incorrect. So now we can look and see that this 2 is in the tenths place. So just to review place value, we see that the 1 is in the tens place. That 0 is in the 1's place. That 2 is in the tenths place. And that 6 is in the 100ths place. That means we need that 2 to be in that hundreds place, as it describes. So the answer should be the second one, as well as the last one. The number 47 and 600ths can be expressed as how? We're splitting this apart. If the 4 is in the tens place, that would mean it's 4 of those tens places, which means A could be correct, B could be correct, but C is wrong because it says it's in the ones place. And D could also be correct. Moving on, we have 7 in the ones place. So that would mean we have 7 of those ones. So this is correct. We already said that we're not looking at C, so we can cross the whole thing out. This is 7 in the ones place, and this is 7 in the ones place. Moving on, we do not have anything in the tens place, which means we're not going to worry about the tens place at all. We're not going to worry about putting 0 times tenths, because that would just equal 0. So we can skip it. However, this is wrong because that doesn't say the tenths. In fact, if you look, they say the exact same thing. It's still 10, which would have to be where the 4 is. So that is why this one is wrong. Do not confuse 10 with tenths. So now we don't have to look at D anymore. We just look at A and B. Now the 6 is in the hundredths. As we expressed earlier, we write that as 0.01. So now I can say that the 6 must be in the tenths place. Wrong. Has to be in the hundredths place. So that's why that one is wrong. Cannot have the tenths place there. It has to be the hundredths place. So A is correct. Do not let them trick you on that. This is just expanded form, which comes back from previous grade levels of second and third. In 2008, the total number of cell phone users in Indonesia was about 140,578,000. Which expression has the same value as 140,578,000? Let's look at this and break it down. We know the 1 is in the 100 millions place. This is 100 million, but this is 10 million. So I already know H, the whole thing is wrong because it started off wrong. Now I see 100 million again. So F, G, and J could be correct. We're moving on to the 40 million. So this is 40 million, 40 million, 40 million. Those are still correct. So we move to the next place value. We don't have any in the millions place, so we're not going to worry about that. We go to the hundred thousands place, which is 5. So 500,000. Unfortunately, this one says 5 million. The hundred thousands place is here. So F is automatically wrong for the entire problem. We look at 500,000, and this is correct. We look at 500, and it's missing 100,000. The hundreds place should be here. There's nothing there. So we know from there it's wrong. So the answer must be G. Quinlan describes a number using these clues, which means I don't care what the number says as long as it has these in that number. Now there's a lot of ways to solve this. One of the ways here is to go ahead and write what it says. So I'm going to create place values, and I'm going to fill in what I need. There's a 7 in the tens place, there's a 3 in the thousands, and there's a 1 in the 100s. So I'm looking and noticing that I start off with 3,170. So find the answers that has 3,170. In fact, the 3 in the thousands place is right there. The 1 in the hundreds place is right there. The 7 in the tens place is right there. So A is correct with just reading straight down. Now we know B is wrong because there is no hundreds place with this 1 occupying it. Similarly with C, and then the 3 should be in the thousands place. Rita bought 3 4/48 pounds of bananas at the store. How is this written? In expanded notation. So 2 ways to solve this. One, you can rewrite all of these answer choices to fit the number that you need and see if it matches in word form. Or you can write the word form out in standard form and see how it's written in expanded notation. So I will try to do both at the same time. Read about 3 and. When I see 3 and, I know that it's 3 in the ones place and the decimal represents the and because the decimal divides up the parts of a whole. These are again are the whole numbers, and these are parts of the whole numbers. So that means now I can continue on. 3 and 48 hundredths. So now I would need to break this down, and I can do 3 times the ones place plus the 4, which is occupying the tenths place. So that means I have 4 of those tenths place, and then I have 8 of those hundredths. So now I just look for that answer. Let's try it the second way. Read about 3 and 48 hundredths. I'm going to write down what F says. 3 times 1, that means 3 is in the ones place. If 3 is in the ones place, I can go ahead and put the decimal there. Then there's a 4 in the tenths place, and there's an 8 in the hundredths place, 3 and 48 hundredths. That matches what I did, so the answer must be F. But let's continue and see why the other ones are wrong. This says 3 in the hundredths place, which means this is in the tens place, and the 8 is in the ones. That's 348 and 0, 0. So no tenths and no hundredths. So that's why this one is wrong, because it was wrong from the beginning. Then I can rewrite this one and say this is 3 in the ones place, 4 in the hundredths place, which means I'm skipping the tenths place, which is never to be done. Then I have an 8 in the tens place, and I go back. For one thing, H is wrong because you always go in order. You never flip around the numbers. The second reason this one is wrong is because it says 84 hundredths. We're looking for 48 hundredths. Finally, this one again is in the hundreds, so we know it's wrong. Which statement about the number 726,483 and 19 hundredths is true? Now we're just looking to see if these digits are labeled correctly in expanded notation. Is there a 9 of those hundreds? No, there's a 4. Is there a 4 of those hundreds? Yes. Is the 8 tenths? No, it is in the tens. The digit 2 has a value of 2 in the tens? No, the 2 is in the 10,000s. That would be written like this. So G is correct. Lillian paid $61.39 for groceries. The digit 3 in this number must have a value. So let's go ahead and write this off. $61 and. We know that and represents a decimal. So we have $61.39. I'm looking for the digit 3. That digit 3 is in the tenths place. So I just find the one that says that. The 3 is not in the tens place. In fact, that's a 6. The 3 is not in the ones place. That's in just a 1. Then we have a 3 in the hundredths place, which is exactly what we need. No. We saw it in the tenths place. Remember, we want to make sure that our place values match up with what we're trying to make sure that we want answered correctly. So, because it's not in the hundredths, it's in the tenths. Be very careful to remember your place values. Workers at a company fixed 37,015 and 8 hundredths meters of pipe. How is this number written in expanded notation? We could just do check marks off. If you're good enough at this, you could just say the 3 is in the 10,000s place. This is wrong because it's not in the thousands place. Everything else is correct. Move on. 7 is in the thousands. 7 in the thousands. Thousands, we already said that C is wrong. And thousands. Moving on. We don't have anything in the hundreds, so we're not going to write it out. Now we have a 1 in the tens place. Do I see a 1 in the tens here? No, it's in the hundreds. Everything else is correct. Then I have a 5 in the ones. This says automatically wrong. So this is a 5 in the ones and a 5 in the ones. Very nice. But now I leave the 0 alone and I look at just the 8. The 8 is in the hundreds. This says the hundreds. This is tenths. So that's wrong. D is correct. The number of movie tickets sold at a theater last year could be written in expanded notation as shown below. What is the written standard form of this number? So we just need 100,000 and 1,000, which means it's going to be like this. I don't see any decimals, so for now, I could just leave those off. I need an 8 in the hundred thousands place, and I need a 6 in the thousands place, which means everything else has a value of 0 since it wasn't mentioned. So now I can see 806,000 is the focus. This says 860. This just says 86. This says 8,000,006. So we're just going to keep C as our answer. The list shows 3 clues about a number. So here we go with the clues again. I can just say this is in the hundreds. I got a 10 and a thousands. So let's just start off with that. Put a decimal, and then go to the hundredths. I need an 8 in that hundreds, I need a 5 in this tens, and I need a 3 in the thousands. Whatever else these other spaces are occupying doesn't matter to me. I only care about those clues. So I need a 3 in the thousands place. Let's check that first since it's all the way to the left. So I have a 3 in the thousands place, 3 in the thousands, 3 in the thousands, 3 in the hundred thousands. D is wrong. Let's move on to the 5 in the tens place. There is a 5 in the tens place, but there's a 6 in this one, so B is wrong. There is a 5 in the tens place, so it could also be C. Finally, we need 8 in the hundredths place. Because this 8 is in the tens place, there should be a hundredths place there, but there's not. So A is wrong, and C is correct. If you need to replay this video to make sure that you understand today's lesson, do so now. If not, continue practicing, and I'll see you next time.